Alright guys, today's video we're going to be talking about bolt carrier groups, kind of one of the heart and soul pieces of the AR platform, that along with the barrel. We're going to talk about what makes a good one, what some of the different specs out there you see mean, and give you a few examples of different types, full auto, semi, etc. Things like that, pros and cons of each, and that'll do it. But that's pretty much what we're going over today, and we'll get into a little bit more shooting before we get into the more boring tabletop type portion of the review. In front of you here we have 4 bolt carrier assemblies. This one here is the PSA Premium, this one here is the Colt, this one here is a Fail Zero carrier with the PSA Premium bolt, and right here we have the BCM Bravo Company bolt carrier. Let's break it down in pieces. First we'll talk about the bolt. So I take the bolt here. The bolt, for those of you guys that are really kind of new to the AR platform, is the piece that strips the round off the magazine, puts it in the chamber, locks in the chamber here with these locking lugs. Shot gets fired, this absorbs the impact of the round, the pressure from the gases, comes back and ejects the round. Some things you want to look for here in terms of a bolt. There's 3 different kinds that you'll really see out on the market. You'll see the 158 Carpenter steel, which is the quote-unquote mil spec. I'll probably do a whole other video on that one day, but that's the mil spec. You'll also see the 9310 steel bolts. Those are claimed by many companies to be a improvement or the enhanced bolt. And you'll see the 8620, which is kind of the lower grade, if you will, of the AR bolts. This is the part most likely to have an issue on your bolt carrier group. If you're going to have a failure, more likely than not, it's going to be your bolt. And in fact, actually, more likely than not, it's going to be one of these 2 lugs. I worked out on an M4 range for about 3 years, saw a lot of broken bolts over that time. And it's almost always one of these 2 bolts that shears off, just due to the way the pressure comes out when the round is ejecting. It's almost always one of these 2. A couple companies have actually tried to address that. I know LMT as well as Armalite has redesigned that to kind of reshape how those forces work, but that's another video as well. Anyway, so those are the basic specs of it. A couple things you want to look for here. You'll see MP inspected. If you look here on the Colt, you see it says MPC. Other bolts, most of them are going to say something like, try to see here, HPMP. That's the BCM. And what the MP part of it means is that it's magnetic particle tested. So what they do is they basically put an electrical charge in the bolt, charge it up, put a bunch of small metal shavings around it, and test to see that the metal shavings that are attracted to it uniformly around the bolt. If they're not, then they know there's a crack in the bolt because the electricity is not getting to it. So that's what the MP stands for. The other thing you're going to see a lot on there is the HP. So again, we'll go to the, we'll take the PSA for instance, PSA Premium, and that one is marked. And we'll go back to the BCM, you see the HP on there. What that means is high pressure tested. They fire a proof load, basically a high pressure round, before they do that magnetic particle testing to put the stress on the bolt, and then they do the MP testing, and that ensures that the steel is uniform and is withholding its strength. So it's kind of an important thing, in my opinion, that you get at least the MP HP tested bolt. Another thing you'll see out there is that the bolts are shot peened. What that means is basically they, it's kind of like, for those of you that are familiar with bead blasting, they put the bolt in this little box, take a bunch of metal spheres, little metal balls, and just pound it with it. And what that does is it briefly compresses the surface of the metal. So that actually creates a surface of the metal, a real thin surface that's much harder than the rest of the metal. So it toughens it up and allows it to take more pressure. So those are the bolts. Now we're going to get onto the carriers. There's 2 basic types of carriers. We'll take a look here at the 2 in the middle. This one here being the Colt from my LE6920. You guys have seen the video on that. And this one here is the Fail Zero. The thing you should notice, not just the coating, obviously this is the MP3 coating, and this is just your standard mil-spec coating here. But the thing you're going to notice is that this one is shorter in the rear here than the Colt. And what that means is this one here is a quote-unquote semi-bolt, and this one here is a quote-unquote full auto bolt. Both are legal to own. I know that question comes up a lot. You can have a full auto carrier without having a full auto gun, but what this does here is it actually adds a little bit of weight to these carriers, and it slows the extraction process down as it's moving, as the round is getting extracted and the bolt carrier group is moving back into the buffer tube. It slows it down a little bit, that extra weight. So theoretically, it puts less pressure on the entire system by slowing it down, so it's less of a spike, if you will. Most people will generally prefer to run the full auto bolts just because of that reason. There's theoretically less wear on it, but there's nothing wrong with a semi-automatic bolt at all, a correction carrier at all. They work just fine. You just need to be aware that the difference is the weight and then the rate at which they're going to move after you fire the rounds. A few things you want to look for on a carrier. You want to see, if you look in here, you can see this is chrome wind. You want a chrome wind carrier, and the reason is it helps that the bolt move back and forth, which it's going to do throughout the firing process. It makes it smoother, especially when you get crud in there, like a lot of carbon. It makes it smoother and is resistant to corrosion as well over long term. You also want to look for a chrome wind key. You look in the gas key there, you can see that there is a chrome winding in that as well for the exact same reasons. It resists corrosion. It just keeps it running smoother. Those are basically the two things you want to look for in a carrier. Most carriers are going to be out of 8960, or correction, 8620 steel. And that's perfectly fine, because again, the carriers are going to take less pressure, if you will, during the firing process. I've rarely ever seen a carrier break, and when I do, it's generally around the gas key here. Another big thing we want to talk about here is staking. So all of these carriers are properly staked. What staking means is these little pieces of metal right here pushed into the screws that hold the gas key in place. What that does is, as the round is firing, these gas keys is getting the pressure coming back here from the gas tube, pushing up on it. And over the long term, that takes a pounding over and over again. So what it does, that staking prevents these hex screws from backing out underneath that pressure and the vibration from the rounds firing. So you want to make sure those are staked. That's definitely, in my opinion, a pretty important thing. So on the carriers, you want to look for the staking, the chrome winding, and that it's 8620 steel. Whether or not you get a full or semi-auto, it's up to you, but just understand the difference is the weight in this little piece right here, and that's how you recognize it. And in terms of your bolts, you want to make sure you get MP, HP inspected. I generally will recommend that you get a 158 Carpenter steel. I have experience with the enhanced bolts. I have never noticed anything better about them in terms of long-term wear, things like that. In my opinion, maybe you're just paying for something that you'll never use. So I recommend you get the 158 steel. I've done this for a while now. I can kind of anticipate the kind of questions I'm going to get. So I want to go ahead and answer it now in terms of what do you recommend, which ones, which brand. Really, as long as you're meeting the standards that I listed there, the chrome winding, the 158 steel for the bolt, things like that, or even the enhanced ones if you want to go that route. If you're meeting those minimum standards, it should be all right. But the difference is, in my opinion, is the quality control aspect within the different brands. So a lot of you guys know that a lot of the brands are actually made by the same company, just marked differently and manufactured to different specs. But the brands that I do recommend, I have 4 that I recommend because I've only had positive experience with them. And that would be Spikes Tactical. I've never had a bad issue with them. They've always been to spec, and they look great when they come. Palmetto State Armory, the premium ones, not the little 8620 ones, only the premium. So Spikes Tactical, Palmetto State Armory Premium, the Colt I recommend, as well as BCM. So those 4. If you buy one of those 4, you should be good to go. Still inspect it when you get it. Make sure your stakes are done properly, things like that. Because, I mean, it's quality control like anything else, and they can miss some stuff, so make sure you inspect it when you get it. But one of those 4 brands, you should be good to go. In fact, every single defensive AR I own, whether it's a home defense or self-defense AR I own, runs one of those 4 bolt carrier groups in it. They're excellent brands, and you're probably going to do all right by any of them. There's others, of course, that are excellent. I'm just trying to speak from my personal experience and what I can recommend personally. But as always, guys, thanks for watching the video. If you guys have questions, feel free to post either here or over at my Facebook page. I'll do my best to answer. I hope this helps some of you guys out. A lot of guys are new to the AR platform these days, and now hopefully you know what to look for. But post those comments, post those questions, and thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching, and thanks for sharing these videos. I appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video.